Hey guys! So this video is going to be about textbooks for your first year, specifically your first semester at Ryerson University in fashion design or communications. For all of your courses, 6 courses, there are 5 textbooks, and I'm going to be going over those and approximate prices and what you can expect to buy them secondhand, so you have a general idea that you're not being conned out of your money by second years, because I would try and do that, but I'm going to be real with you guys. In general, textbooks are quite expensive. They can range $80 upwards. I'm going to average $100 brand new. Never buy new, to be quite honest, from the bookstore unless it's your last resort. But I'm going to be frank about textbooks in School of Fashion is that you could get by without buying any. It would make your life a little more difficult because you'd have to track down a copy and borrow it and get photos or photocopies somehow. And, just for the sake and convenience of studying when you need it or for classes, I do highly recommend getting them. But if you really, really can't afford to, then you could survive. So I'm going to talk about each textbook for each course. I'm just going to move over because I'll insert a picture like right there of the textbook as I talk about it. So firstly, illustration. Illustration is called Fashion Sketchbook. And the 5th and 6th edition are honestly almost the exact same. The only thing that changes between editions are usually the page numbers and how it was edited. This applies to all textbooks, especially if they're more for reference. And I'll just talk about this a little later about some other ones that you probably might not want to buy. But always you can double check with your prof to say, is this previous edition acceptable? Because odds are it is. For example, illustration, how you draw a fishtail skirt is not going to change from 2011 to 2015 between editions. Please do not tell me how, Anyways, aside from that little rant about different editions of a book, that simply means different publishing dates. And illustration, you honestly do not need that textbook. I used it once during the entire year. It's great reference to have. I totally think it's worth it if you need some more help maybe for illustration, but if you feel very confident in it, do not get it. You're not going to get marks off for not using it as a reference. And that textbook cost $120 new. But I got it for $60, and then, again, I used it once. The next textbook, Fashion Design. Since this is split into 2 different parts, pattern drafting and construction, you need 2 separate textbooks. I did not buy the textbook, the supporting material for sewing, because I felt I was strong enough, and I'm glad I made that decision because I did not need it all. It just has a lot of guidelines about how to sew buttonholes, how to sew a nice seam, how to do this, how to do that. Don't bother with that book. It's called The Sewing Book if you're a very strong sewer. However, the one for pattern drafting, that's quite a rare thing to find in a high school curriculum, to say you've taken an official course in it, unless you went to a specific art or fashion school. Lucky you. That's awesome. Maybe you don't need it, but I highly recommend you get that textbook because it's very helpful when you start learning it, because I found it very foreign because I'd never done any formal courses in that area, and that is called Basic Pattern Drafting Skills, and that, honestly, you could use that throughout your entire 4 years, potentially, because it has great references for just little skills that, you might forget here and there. And those textbooks, I'm not sure how much the sewing book cost, but the Basic Pattern Skills cost $87 new, but I got it for $60. As for Fundamentals of Color and Design, you do not need a textbook for this. Bless. You used to, actually, because it had worksheet activities about color theory, but you do not anymore. So do not get conned into buying the Color for the Real World textbook because you do not need it. Textiles. That is quite a heavy book. Honestly, I liked it just because it helped explain a lot of concepts I didn't understand through the lecture, because I'm more of a visual learner than auditory learner. I just didn't feel I was absorbing much from the lectures as I could from reading it from a textbook. And so I bought it, and I was very happy that I did, because I feel that I did much better because of that. And that is called Textiles, whatever edition. Again, the old edition just as fine. And Textiles cost me $153 if I bought it new, but I got it for $60. Hooray. Next on the list, Intro to Fashion. That textbook is called In Fashion. And there's the 6th edition by, I forget, awkward. Anyways, the 6th edition. And this is something that you might want to consider making sure you get the more recent edition, because it is more about fashion from a social aspect, so it might have information. Maybe the last publication was in, like, let's say 2012 arbitrarily, but in the new edition has information from 2014, so obviously the 2012 version wouldn't have it, and maybe that will be in your exam. So this subject is an important one to check if you do find an old edition, if it does overlap. So if you do want to try and get a cheaper textbook as in an older edition, then I'd suggest comparing with a friend who has the newest one, or just asking the prof. But I don't think you'd have a problem with this course because it hasn't changed in a while. Lastly, art history. I saved this last for a reason, because the textbook for this one is so helpful. Oh my goodness. A lot of things covered in the lecture are covered in the textbook, but there are small facts, you know, maybe like 5 questions that are only in the textbook. But think about those 5 questions, like those are just 5 marks you might potentially lose if you don't get the textbook. But still, the textbook's great for review because you're not going to remember or take notes on every single thing during art history. I'm going to be honest. Art history was the class that I missed the most of because I just slept. Or I totally zoned out because it is a 3-hour lecture. And to be honest, I find it hard to focus if I'm just having such an off day that I just bye. So I think it's very important that you get the textbook for that. However, it is the most expensive textbook. Drum roll, please. $180 brand new. However, I bought the previous edition, the 3rd edition, for $60. Let's be honest, the rock paintings from caves in Lascaux, France have not changed since the previous edition in like 2002 or whatever. I'm just saying. I had no problem with previous editions for any of these textbooks. Again, page numbering's different, but it's not like you're sitting in class saying, everyone turn to page 23 and you're on page 36. So it's not a problem at all. Okay, as for recommendations where you can get these textbooks, all second years will be trying to pawn theirs off of themselves because we don't want to keep them because we realize they're totally useless for the rest of our university careers. Wahoo! So we're going to be selling them usually for about those prices I listed. I kind of got like the cheaper of the bunch. So that's one way to save money. Another way is also check out Kijiji. There's a couple of used bookstores around on Victoria Street, as well as a used bookstore on campus that's student run. Another way that I saved money myself is, though I listed all these prices, like I paid $60. Ooh, why'd the lighting change? Okay. Anyways, I list all these prices, like $60, $80, whatever for a textbook, but in all honesty, I technically only paid $30 or $40 for a textbook because another girl on my floor was also in fashion, so we bought all the books and then split the cost between us. So then whenever Erica, the girl that lived 2 doors down from me, needed the pattern drafting book, I just gave it to her and she took it to class if she needed it that day. Or if she just knocks on my door and says, hey Shar, I'd like the art history textbook to study, I just gave it to her, and then when I needed it, I would ask for it back. So that was a really good way to save costs. So I really hope this video helped, and TLDR, don't be afraid to buy older editions. Don't be afraid to ask your profs about that if it's okay. Don't be afraid to rent from the library. The library does have Art Across Time, which is your textbook for art history. And yeah, that's it. Good luck, guys.